So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks very much for attending this webinar. My name's Adam Brain. I'm also joined by my colleague Matthew Holden, and we're going to be talking about how to drive and sustain adoption through user centricity in your products. Just a few items of housekeeping up front. We will be recording this session so that people can watch it back at a later date. We also have closed captions available in the WebEx browser, so if anyone wants to follow the presentation with subtitles on, that's also an option. Just a quick introduction to me. I've been working with Soprasterian in product management and product centricity for the last 3 to 4 years. I sit within Soprasteria's experience design team, working predominantly with central government contracts. Matthew, did you also just want to take a moment to provide a quick introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Hi, everyone. So I'm Matt. I sit in Soprasteria's business transformation consulting practice, primarily working in central government. Been in and around sort of, product management and product-centric ways of working for a number of years as well.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Right, so we will have plenty of time for Q&A in this session. Just at the back end of the session, there should be a plugin in your WebEx browser for Slido, so that if you have any questions, feel free to submit them along the way, and we'll obviously respond to them at the end. If you do have any issues with the plugin, there is also a way of submitting questions on slido.com. You've got the event code and passcode on your screen now, so that's another way to submit your questions if you have any issues at all. Great. So just to sort of start with the agenda, first of all, we're going to start by providing an overview of product centricity, which is really Soprasteria's organizational approach towards really trying to optimize value out of our program delivery. We'll also talk about product management, which is very much more focused on the kind of skills and experience that our product managers and product teams actually bring to each product in terms of trying to bring that vision to life. Matthew is also going to talk about how to drive adoption from central government programs through using product-centric approaches. And then, as I've mentioned, we'll also have a Q&A session at the end where we'll look forward to responding to some questions from the audience. So just to kick off, what are we talking about when we refer to product centricity? Well, generally speaking, product centricity is concerned with trying to provide more value to more users more quickly. Generally speaking, with a lot of our digital transformation programs, we're very much concerned with maximizing user adoption and uptake as much as possible, and also just efficiently using all of our resources to try and provide value to clients in that respect as well. So that's very much the aim of product centricity. It's clear though that if we're focusing on user adoption, and if we're holding that up as the measure of a successfully designed product or service, there are a number of challenges that central government faces along the way in terms of trying to achieve that goal. The first of which is not losing sight of the end user and value on big complex programs and long deliveries. As we know, it's very easy to sort of only engage with the user at specific moments on that program, and obviously you want to ensure that we're gathering their requirements and involving them throughout that process. And then the second challenge is very much around partnering with other agencies across wider government to actually make sure that we're bringing in those wider perspectives. We're identifying solutions that have worked elsewhere and reusing wherever possible instead of reinventing the wheel. So those are sort of two challenges that we wanted to speak to today. And through doing that, we'll really draw on our experience of working with central government to explain the main principles needed to overcome these challenges. Great. So just wanted to start by providing a bit of an overview of Soprasteria's approach to product centricity. And I think the main sort of element to bring out here is that product centricity for us is very much about trying to optimize value and how we deliver value to clients and users. and it's really underpinned by three main pillars that we think are important to program delivery, and very much where we try to focus our time and effort while we're delivering these programs. The first of which is around setting the strategic vision for the program. So very much upfront, embracing those quite complex questions and rationale as to why the program is running. So what is the problem that we're trying to solve? What does good look like? And what are the different routes that we need to consider to actually getting us towards that goal? So defining that strategic vision is very much, we think, important, not just to define it up front, but to sort of constantly engage and revisit it throughout program delivery. The second piece is around agile delivery, and sort of an ongoing review of progress and value as we're actually delivering the solutions themselves. So in terms of agile, we very much take an approach whereby we're looking to sort of identify opportunities, proof of concept, and sort of test and iterate these throughout the delivery process. Again, engaging with wider stakeholders, users and clients throughout that to ensure that we're actually solving the problem. So we view that very much as a sort of iterative, ongoing process that we believe helps us identify the right solutions earlier through testing and experimentation. And then finally, capability building. It's really important that, obviously, in terms of capability building, that we're, as the team is delivering the program, we're sort of utilizing opportunities to transfer knowledge and build product skills within your teams, so that, you know, beyond the life cycle of the program, the benefits can actually continue to be delivered, as opposed to just being locked within the program itself. So there's very much a kind of sustainability angle to that, and ensuring that actually we pass on the skills and learnings that are generated throughout program implementation. So what are the benefits of product centricity? Well, first of all, what we've seen is that it really can lead to better decision making, particularly defining that sort of clear product vision, and balancing the constraints and trade-offs is a really, you know, useful way of framing the program and ensuring that all of the tasks and activities that we're taking decisions over are aiming towards achieving that overarching goal. So it does sort of support better decision making throughout the program. It also helps make delivery more efficient. I've already mentioned agile processes, but very much it sort of sets the standard for using agile, and it ensures that by sort of testing and identifying what's working or not working early on, that we can put resources behind the high priority items that actually move us towards achieving those goals. Thirdly, it really helps with greater organizational alignment. It has the sort of stakeholder engagement piece sort of baked into the approach, whereby we're really looking to engage across government and with wider stakeholders and ensure that multiple perspectives are sort of fed into program delivery, and aligned with one another. So it really does foster cross-functional working across teams to ensure products are developed in a collaborative way. We also think it increases innovation. You know, as part of delivery, we're constantly generating data and testing and trialing different initiatives, to sort of aim towards continuous improvement. So it really does help us sort of identify innovations, and by having a sort of collaborative way of working, we very much like to, you know, give anyone the opportunity in the team, be it from, you know, a client or within the team itself, to really feel they can sort of make suggestions over ways of working and things that we should be testing out. So it sort of enables innovative suggestions and creativity. And then finally, it brings with it an outcomes focus. So again, aligned to this sort of strategic vision way of working, it's very much concerned with ensuring that we're tackling the problem and creating valuable outcomes as a result of program delivery. Because as we know, it can be very easy in these programs to become very focused on completing tasks and getting deliverables done. That's obviously very important, but it does make sure that we're sort of constantly looking at how that actually responds to the original brief and the problem that we're setting out to achieve. And by extension, all of these, you know, this leads to additional benefits as well. It helps us sort of optimize value from limited resources. It helps us create a scalable program from the outset. And it also supports us to focus on solving the problem rather than, you know, focusing on task completion. So it really does provide benefits at multiple stages. And so what does good product management look like? What are the sort of skills and experiences that our product managers and product teams actually bringing to delivery on a daily basis? Well, first of all, as I've already mentioned, they're very focused on value and outcomes and making sure that the time and resources being allocated by the team are actually moving us towards that value and outcome-driven approach. They also think holistically. They're looking to sort of identify things that have worked elsewhere, ways of working or solutions, reusing wherever possible and making sure that we're actually leveraging what already exists to deliver something as quickly and efficiently as possible that can work. Thinking about reuse, I've just mentioned that. As I say, it's about trying to leverage what already exists to solve the problem. Embedding sustainability, so making sure that skills are being transferred from the delivery team to clients and wider central government to ensure that those skills are available to continue the programme beyond the end of its life cycle. They also champion users. So as we know, we want to constantly try and capture user requirements and feedback throughout the project. That's not always possible. So our product managers are very much there to sort of speak up and make sure that the user is heard in those really important discussions. They speak in services, so very much trying to understand how the work that's being conducted actually fits into the development of a government service and making sure that it's focused on a clear outcome in terms of service delivery. Delivering incrementally, so instead of focusing on perfection from the start, finding things that work or show potential and then testing them and improving them over time. Fostering agility is similar to that previous point, very much not becoming locked into one solution, but actually trying to understand what works and moving on to new solutions and picking up and dropping those as necessary. Building alignment with wider parts of the government and stakeholders through bringing them into delivery processes and making sure those perspectives are brought on board. Empowering the team so that anyone feels able to put their hand up and come up with a solution or a suggestion in terms of how things can be delivered better. Failing and learning fast, so not being afraid to drop something that really isn't working and harvesting the insights from that and making sure that we do it better next time. And then finally, taking decisions based on evidence, so ensuring that we're pulling together what evidence exists and feedback from users wherever possible to ensure that we're actually focusing on things that work and have objective data behind them. So at this point, just want to hand over to Matthew, who's going to talk through some of our experiences on how to drive adoption on these programs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. So if adoption is the sort of barometer of success, I have a feeling that most people on this call would instinctively agree with everything that's just been said and won't need any convincing that if you adopt those sort of principles and ways of working, you'll build the right products and adoption will take care of itself. But obviously some people, won't be of that opinion and will need convincing. So, for us, adoption is that end measure. If we're doing all of that stuff right, then adoption is that much better. There are a couple of challenges we consistently see in our government clients that sort of hamper that. First challenge that we see regularly in central devolved government, if you go on one slide, Adam, is program services losing sight of the end user. So, reasonably easily done, particularly in central government, where programs can get quite big, quite complex, quite quickly, and go on and on. So, by all means, do lots of good user research and user-centric stuff at the beginning. In year 3 and 4, not so much. Technical debts, program constraints get in the way, and the roadmap ends up looking slightly different to how it did in the beginning. It really hampers adoption. I mean, clearly, you won't build the thing in the right thing in the first place unless you've got sight of the end user and people in the team with that deep understanding. It also makes business change planning and the clarity of your communications quite tricky if you don't have the end user running as a sort of central thread throughout the program, permeating everything you do. and fundamentally your roll-out approach, it will miss the mark if you don't know with certainty what it is users want, when, how. So there's a few things you can do to try and stop yourself getting into that situation. Firstly is to have a product management voice at senior levels and early on in programs and services. So it's certainly the case from the clients we work with that typically product managers, won't have as many levers that they can pull as other roles on a program. Typically, they won't have, budget, and there is a tendency to either, bring them in late, or sort of merge roles with product owners, which again, isn't what we're saying is good kind of user-centric program design. The other thing is having really clear roadmaps, realistic roadmaps that are in sync with governance and the need sometimes to satisfy, business cases and that way of working in the public sector. Really important where you've got cross-program dependencies or the need to work with partner organizations. So fairly obvious things, but really important. There's a few things that we think can help. On the first point, sort of championing the benefits of product management, having those adequately resourced onto programs and services. There's no real silver bullet. It's an issue in the private sector as well. It's a bit of a long game here, and it's about building that authority and credibility over time, evidencing the value that those roles are bringing ground up, and that is what it is. So not being afraid to shout about achievements, point out where you are further along for doing X, Y, Z in a product management user-centric approach compared to more traditional delivery models. And also maybe being a bit demanding about top-down support from your organization. So our senior people, behind user-centric ways of working and product management, is there a community of practice in your organization that you can lean on for support? Difficult, I know, but it is one of those sort of long-term things that people in this space as an emerging sort of discipline need to constantly think about. The second part of the solution about the roadmaps and product strategies is a flexible and agile mindset. So again, product management isn't agile and vice versa. It's sort of a separate discipline, but adopting that flexible mindset about how we meet the user needs is almost secondary to meeting them. So if we've got those ways of working and mindset underpinned by principles, maybe even shared design principles with other organizations or other departmental bodies, can make those conversations about how best to meet the user need much more straightforward. It can remove some of the politics and challenge and different organizational priorities. If the end user and the outcomes that we're trying to enable them to achieve is at the front and center of everything, there should be no qualms about, deprioritizing something in our program because another program is better placed to meet that need, quicker, cheaper, better. And the other thing that Adam touched on earlier is continual user feedback. So, again, understandable in some ways to lose sight of the end user in year 3 and 4. User feedback and engagement shouldn't be done in discovery and then we just crack on with delivery and assume we know. User expectations change, devices and interfaces change. We need to constantly refresh our thinking and understanding there. So quite broad, difficult challenges there, but hopefully a few sort of actionable things that people can take away. Second challenge that we see a lot is not working in partnership, genuine partnership with other agencies and across government. Real big impact, obviously, in terms of adoption. Again, building the right thing in the first place, particularly around, are we enabling the user to reach the outcome that they want? So not just part one that we are responsible for, and then it's sort of over to someone else. Really taking ownership of that end-to-end journey, not just putting data, for example, in front of a user's eyeballs, but understanding what they're going to use with that data, what subsequent actions and parts of the user journey they're going to complete in order to get to the outcome they want to, not necessarily what our outcome is. The way we see this working best really is that focus on the end-to-end. So having that operational understanding of each element in the journey that needs to be spread right throughout program teams, service teams. One of the ways that we see that being done well is where we've got external product owners. So not just as an advisory voice in teams, but actually with some sort of skin in the game, some sort of influence over decision making and prioritization. Those roles can help really understand properly, the individual operational elements, and can keep the team true to the outcomes that the user is trying to achieve, and also really foster a deeper understanding of the touch points and handovers in those sort of partner organizations. The other thing that we always advocate is real transparent and open communication with partner organizations. So taking the time to contribute to newsletters and other comms sort of pieces, and also where possible, subjecting your product service to scrutiny and governance in those other organizations can be quite time consuming, quite difficult, and an uncomfortable place to be. But if we go into that very transparent, very open to challenge, again with the user at the center, that removes some of the difficulties and the unpleasantness around that, and can really break down those kind of barriers and foster that sense of trust. And this is a partnership. It's all about the end user. We work together to facilitate their user journey. And the final thing, which we'd always advise clients to start thinking about early, is reporting and success metrics. So having something quantitative that you can put in front of senior stakeholders, partner organizations, to either define the problem and evidence, and get buy-in and adequate support and resources from them. And also, as we go through the delivery and start to introduce products, features into a live service, we can prove the benefit. It can be really difficult to do when you're in a slightly reactive place, trying to cobble together some analytics or some insights to, for a particular board last minute. It needs to be something that you go in with a clear requirement for an understanding of how you're going to do it. So, not saying that those two challenges are everything, but those are the things we consistently see government clients, I won't say struggling with, but not doing as well as they could. And for us, doing the things that I talk through and having some of these things in mind will get a large extent over the main bulk of the problem if you think about some of these things. So that's it for us. As Adam said, we've got plenty of time for questions and answers on anything we've discussed today or broadly related to user centricity and adoption. So happy to throw it open to questions. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay, we've got a few questions coming through. So the first one, and perhaps Adam, this is a question for you. What do you see as the relationship between the product manager role and the product owner?
Yeah, thanks very much for that. I think so. Just to sort of distinguish between those two things, I think the product manager role is very much around trying to sort of optimize the value throughout delivery of the entire program, very much like I mentioned in the presentation. I think they obviously have to work very closely with the product owner. The product owner needs to be really a representative from the client, from the business side of things. That's really that comprises the following two or three factors really. First of all, they need to have a really detailed understanding of what the benefits are that they're expecting to see from their program. Secondly, they need to be empowered to take decisions over how delivery should progress, and that's at a sort of day-to-day level really. In many cases, they need to be empowered to sort of take those decisions and work closely with the delivery team in order to get that done. And then in order to do that second piece, they therefore need to be available. the product owner, it's it's an inherent part of the delivery team, and often it can be quite challenging, that relationship, if you're trying to sort of get decisions and deliver things whereby you only have contact with the product owner perhaps every 2 or 3 weeks. It needs to be a very sort of close-knit, strong relationship that has close interaction and lots of sort of collaborative discussions over how things should be delivered and how they inform the overall vision. So they are two slightly different roles in terms of where they sit. One very much on the kind of delivery team side of things, one representing the client's needs, but they do have to work very closely together and make sure be closely aligned to sort of take those decisions.
That's great, thanks, Adam. Another question here, perhaps for you, Matt. How do you prove the benefit of a product-centric approach?
Yeah, quite difficult, to be honest, because you're sort of proving the counterfactual, aren't you? I mean, and it's easier for us to say because we work with a lot of clients, and we can confidently say, just from sheer weight of numbers and experience, it is those programs or services that have a genuine user-centric kind of way of working and understanding that do better, certainly when it comes to adoption. I think, again, going back to what I said about not being afraid to sort of make clear what's different. If we're taking an approach to rollout planning, and we can point to certain things that we're doing, we're taking a user-centric approach, which naturally, given that this is not done that widely in the public sector, should be fairly easy to convince people in terms of this feels different. This is a bit easier. We're not seeing some of the typical risks associated with digital delivery materializing. But yeah, I appreciate you are sort of trying to take people on a bit of a journey, proving something hasn't happened when it hasn't. And the other thing, I suppose, would be to try and make use of analytics and tools to track behavior and completions and dropout rates and that sort of thing.
Great, thank you. And another question that's just come in. Have you developed any supporting artifacts to move from project to product, such as product readiness assessment or project to product blueprint?
So yes, we have. We've got a little bit of thinking and a methodology around how you implement a product-centric approach and move from one more traditional model into a more service-led. Because clearly it doesn't just happen overnight. We've got some, as I said, templates to enable you to take stock and plan what the gap is. Probably won't spend a huge amount describing that, but I'm really happy if someone wants to follow up and we can have a more detailed conversation after, just so I don't get too specific.
Yeah, also just to add into that, if that's okay. I mean, I think obviously the nature of programs is that they're often quite specific and vary. What we are sort of working on as part of this approach is developing a set of principles that can be applied and transferred to different programs. It's quite hard to give a sort of very rigid blueprint that is a sort of how-to guide for every program, but there are certainly common sets of principles and skills that we're looking to to pull together and apply. So yeah, I mean, as Matthew said, very happy to sort of expand on that and take that discussion further beyond the webinar.
Great, thank you very much. And another question here. How do you do product to bleak user centricity in a scaled agile environment where other programs may require you to compromise on your user needs for the greater good?
Yeah, that can be difficult. As I mentioned earlier, those design principles, if well written with the user at the center, should take away some of the discomfort and potentially competing priorities around doing that. We've seen this in law enforcement a number of times, where you've got quite a complicated ecosystem of data and services, sometimes overlapping and meeting quite similar needs. So I think if you can have a really clear idea of who your customer is, how you're serving them, and why, that can facilitate quite a healthy relationship there. So I think design principles are really important when it comes to cross program, cross government working. And the other thing I would say is having a really clear understanding early on, if possible, of what some of the technical constraints are. So, there will typically be legacy infrastructure at play, things that aren't moving or won't not become a barrier for a number of years and would have to work around. Again, I think having those really clearly identified really helps when it comes to conversations about respective prioritization in different programs on it, or in a scaled agile environment.
Okay, thank you very much. We don't have any more questions at the moment, but perhaps we should give people just a couple of minutes if anyone wants to submit another question, or a few seconds at least. I'm not seeing anything. Oh, yes, I have. Oh, someone's asking if we will be doing any more webinars. We have plans to do any more webinars.
Yes, quite possibly. I mean, as I said, this is something that we think is really important. And yeah, if we can kind of bring some thinking and help our clients overcome some of these challenges, and as I said, sort of increase the prominence and thinking about this sort of emerging discipline, then yeah, really happy to be a part of that. So, yeah, something for us to think about. If there are no more, though, really happy for people to get in touch. Our contact details are on the next slide. If we want to have a follow-up conversation about anything that we've covered, particularly on that concept of how you introduce something of a culture change around going from a project-based delivery environment to a service or product. Thank you very much for your participation and asking those quite challenging questions. And yeah, I hope you've learned something. So thank you very much on behalf of Adam and I and Sopra Steria. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it.